Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a fantastic night. In this episode of the Music Den, I'm going to be doing another installment of In the Spotlight. Now, to be fair, to be honest with you, I should say, sorry, I recorded a video for this episode earlier today. I didn't like the way it turned out, so I deleted the video and wanted to start fresh. In the Spotlight is where I take an album by a band. Either the band or the album are not really well known, or the band are well known, but the album that I talk about may not have been either well received by the public at large or may not have reached the public at large due to lack of promotion by the record company or the band, etc. So the band in question for this episode is XTC, and the album is Nonsuch. Now, just a bit about XTC. They were formed in 1972 under the name Star Park. They had that name for 2 years. Then in 1974, they changed their name to the Helium Kids. In 1976, they changed the name to XTC, and they basically settled on this name before signing to Virgin Records in 1977. XTC were described in the beginning of the career as a post-punk new wave band. They moved into alternative rock, I guess you could say, alternative pop, psychedelic pop, then those types of genres. They upon signing to Virgin in 1977, they released a string of albums through the 70s and 80s, starting with White Music, Go To, Black Ocean, English Settlement, Murmur, The Big Express, Skylarking, which was their critical success, produced by Todd Rundgren. Unfortunately, the work with Todd Rundgren did not go well for lead singer and main songwriter Andy Partridge. He felt quite disillusioned and quite emotionally beaten up by Todd Rundgren. They took a 3-year break and released Oranges and Lemons in 1989. And that was more of their psychedelic pop phase, where that album contained the hit Mayor of Simpleton, which is a fantastic pop track. There's no way around it. And they took another 3-year break and came out with Nonsuch. Now, there was a lot to say about Nonsuch. First of all, the band for this recording consisted of Andy Partridge on lead vocals, guitars, and assorted instruments, Colin Moulding on bass, lead vocals on at least 4 of the tracks, and backup vocals and assorted instruments, and Dave Gregory on guitars, acoustic electric, synthesizer. The album was produced by Gus Dudgeon, who predominantly worked with Elton John in the 70s. It was released through Virgin Records in the UK and Canada and Geffen Records in the US. The album has been described in terms of a musical genre as pop/Shango rock. And I would have to agree. I do remember when this album came out in April of 1992. The 2 main singles that were released from the album were Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead and The Disappointed. Now, the 2 singles that I just mentioned were released in the reverse order in the UK. There is a lot to say about this album. There's a lot. Upon listening to the album quite a few times, I realized that the themes on this album were quite intense. Andy Partridge has always been the main songwriter of XTC, to the point where it's been rumored that Colin Moulding has criticized him for taking too much of a dominating role in the band. They've had previous members leading up to this. When they first started, they had Terry Chambers on drums, who left the band in 1983 due to frustration of them not touring. Andy Partridge had developed a case of stage fright. So as of 1983, they were deemed a studio-only project. Again, much to the frustration of Terry Chambers, because he felt, why are we together if we're not going to tour and perform live? So having said that, he had left the band, and they would basically get a revolving door of drummers to participate in the recordings for these albums. And it's got to be said, the drum tracks for Skylarking, that was produced by Todd Rundgren, mainly consisted of drum programming. But getting back to Nonsuch, the album, there's, I would say, a mixture of styles on this album. First of all, it starts off with Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead. And in terms of being a raucous track, this is the most rock-oriented track on the album, okay? I should also say that Andy Partridge wrote 13 of the 17 tracks on the album. It was released as a double vinyl album, single disc, believing clocking in around 65 minutes, long album. But you know what? A bloody good album. And as a side note, the Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead was also a hit for a Canadian group signed to Arista Records. The group was Crash Test Dummies. And in listening to Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead, the track is sensational. The lyrics basically talk about someone who basically went against the norm and challenged the authority of the people who made the rules. And he paid for it with his life. Now, upon reading the lyrics and listening to it, you can basically say that it's a modern telling of Jesus Christ. I don't want to get too biblical. I'm not a biblical type of individual, but to me, when I listen to the lyrics, that is what first came into my head. And anyone that would listen to it I would imagine, as I scratch myself, would agree, because it basically tells that story of someone who came into a town, started getting to know people and giving to people and not asking for anything in return, and questioning when things were going wrong and why do we have to settle for being in a substandard situation. And he paid for it dearly. Other songs of note on the album are My Bird Performs. This is one of the 4 tracks written by Colin Moulding. Colin Moulding on this album wrote My Bird Performs. The Smartest Monkeys, War Dance, and Bungalow. I do not know why Andy Partridge would not let him contribute more songs to these albums, because I do believe that Colin Moulding has a fantastic sense of melody and hooks, fantastic vocalist, and he and Andy Partridge on harmony vocals, amazing, just amazing. The next track on the album, track 3, is Dear Madam Barnum, Barnum and Bailey, and the lyrics basically deal with someone who is telling his girlfriend, I'm not going to be your fool anymore. I'm not going to wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm not going to, jump through hoops to prove to you that I am worth it to be with. I'm done. I'm out. And in the lyrics, there's a lyric about her safety net walking out the door, meaning that, he knew that she was basically screwing around on him. And now that person's gone and he's out the door as well. He's leaving. He's not putting up with her anymore. Other songs of note on the album. Again, Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead was the first single. The Disappointed was the second single. And fantastic track. Beautiful harmony vocals. Beautiful lead vocal delivery by Andy Partridge. Amazing. The song talks about the disenfranchised and trying to fit in to society, and how, for lack of a better term, what people would deem as freaks, how they sort of congregate together and sort of find one another and commiserate together. But in the end, that there is a place for people who feel like they live on the fringes of society. And speaking as someone who at times, at my age still feels like he's living on the fringes of society, I can relate to this track so much. Other songs of note for me are Crocodile, where he's basically, and this is an Andy Partridge track, I should say. It's a very raucous, percussive track. And he's basically saying to, at the time in the track, his wife has left him, but he's not going to be bitter. He's not going to let loneliness and the feeling of anger get him down. And the choruses start on the beat, the drum beat, like, it's a very percussive track, very a form of ass shaking, I call it. Fantastic. Another track that is great, it comes up after this, is Rook. And another track written by Andy Partridge. The verses are in 3/4 time on piano, and the middle sections, I guess you call them the choruses, have fantastic orchestral accompaniment to it. But he's basically saying, before I leave this life, tell me, was it my time to go, or was this all done in vain? Like, is it my time to leave this planet, or was this done by mistake? Was I taken by mistake? Amazing. Just amazing. It's not all doom and gloom on this album. There's another track on here called Then She Appeared, another Andy Partridge track. just beautiful, melodic, lush melodies, harmonies, uh, uh, a beautiful backing track. The one thing I like about Andy Partridge's vocal style is it's very unique. It's hard to describe his vocal style. I would say quirky. That's the only way I can describe it. Very sort of off center. Beautiful though. When he did, excuse me, when he does too much coffee, when he does a harmony vocal and double tracks himself, or even with Colin Moulding, amazing, amazing. Together, I do not know why these two could not continue working together. They work beautifully together, flawless. There may be tensions behind the scenes, but nobody, if they didn't say in interviews that this is what was going on, that we had problems and issues, no one would know. No one would ever know, you know. Just fantastic. Wrapped in Gray is another track that was supposed to be the third single from Nonsuch, and Virgin Records in the UK decided to pull it at the very last minute, causing a lot of stress for Andy Partridge. He wrote the track. He thought it was a beautiful track, and listening to it, it's sublime. It is poetry. It is fantastic. It's basically saying, let your, how can I put this properly? Let your guard down, let your creative self out. You have one life to live. Don't waste it. Whatever you have to say in writing or in creation, in creating something, create. Let yourself out. Okay? Let the world know what you can do. Don't settle for what people are trying to sell you out there. Make your own reality and make your world the way you want to see it. I do not know why Virgin Records decided to scrap this single. It is beautiful. It boggles the mind. Okay. The last track on the album, track 17, is called Books Are Burning. And just from the title of the track, I mean, the subject matter is relevant to what is happening today in our society, with book burning still going on in the States and other parts of the world. I can't understand it. I can't stand it. But unfortunately, this is still our reality. And it's unfortunate that some people are turning a blind eye to it, but that's the way it is. This is a fantastic album. Nonsuch, again, upon its release, did not fare as well as Skylarking in '87, or to a lesser degree, Oranges and Lemons. At the time of release in 1992, in the summer, I spent a day at A&M Records, at the time who distributed Virgin Records. And I spent the day with an A&R guy whose name is Faisal. And I asked him about, the album and how it was doing. He said it wasn't doing well, not as well as Virgin wanted it to do, because they didn't have a hit on the album. They didn't feel they had a hit. And the promotion for the album had passed, and they weren't going to be releasing any more singles. To me, that's disgusting, because you have artists like XTC. And as I said in the previous video months back, Neil Young, who signed these deals with promises from the record companies that they would have total autonomy as to the control and the type of material that they can record, only to find out that when they do give these albums to the record companies, that the record companies, because they don't hear a hit, a bona fide hit, in the typical format, they won't release the album, or they won't release a certain single that the band truly feels, or the artist truly feels, would be a good song to release. I don't understand it. I do think it is disgusting that record companies, basically from the beginning of popular music, were always trying to follow a format. Yes, I understand that they're out there to make money, but songs like Wrapped in Gray and Dear Madam Barnum went by the wayside because they didn't want to take a chance, So please check out Nonsuch. And down below, let me know what you think of XTC and the album Nonsuch. Do you like XTC? Do you not like XTC? Do you think that that they, never had a chance, or that they were never a good band? Or do you think that they were a band that should have been bigger than what they were? They were bigger in the UK than they were in North America. I grant you that. But I personally see this album as a lost opportunity. And I'd like to know your opinion, and please put it down there in the comment section. So that's it for this evening. I will be doing a show on Saturday with Peter Kent on the ranking of the Van Halen albums. We're going to be doing all 12 albums. Yes, Van Halen 3, Mr. Gary Sharon. So when you watch, please grab some food, grab something to drink. It's going to be a long one. And I'm also going to be doing a show with Bill Schuster. And at some point, he's quite busy with work these days. We're going to be doing a show on new music discovery on Joe Jackson. He's going to be taking the lead on that episode, which is going to be great. And we're at some point are going to be doing an album ranking of Pink Floyd. The long-awaited, elusive episode will appear, I promise you. So for right now, please take care of yourselves and look after yourselves and one another, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.